Yeah, so welcome back to Hipsterless Hangouts. We're doing the second take here of Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Yes. Yeah, the first take was actually pretty good. We had a pretty good conversation going on. But on my end, I am in Mexico City ahora, and I happened to be in a coffee shop, and it was just a bit distracting and loud on my end. So hopefully we can recoup the target points that we discussed and make it a worthwhile video this time around.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that this is a movie that we already said on the last recording we both like. So, and I remember I started off last time by telling you that we went into this with me not remembering that I have actually seen this before. I probably saw it when it was a new release, and I don't think I've watched it any bit since then until this rewatch for this podcast, for this episode. And especially just the beginning, like, this is not a movie where you will sit there wondering, have I seen this before? This is a very memorable film. And when did you first see it?
Probably not too shortly after it was released. From those DVD video rental machines, it was there at a Rite Aid or one of those, maybe a Walgreens, one of the ones I used to frequent a lot. And I feel like that would have been 2008, 2009. And it was released in 2006, correct? So it would have been not too long thereafter. And I had also seen Marissa Tomei previously in The Wrestler, so I remember just recognition. She's not one of my favorite actresses, but just recognizing her as having watched her many times in The Wrestler shortly before that. This was probably the movie where I decided that I really liked Phillip Seymour Hoffman. I never actively sought out his films, but this was pretty impressive. The whole cast was impressive, and he being now one of my favorite actors, and this would have been the first movie that I really remember being very appreciative of him, and have been ever since.
Yeah, I don't think we talked too much about. We talked about him last time, but I don't know if I knew that this was what turned you on to him. So, like, and you said you weren't. It's not like you love Marissa Tomei, although now she's the patron actress of this podcast, having been in a couple of episodes. She's now officially our favorite actress. But what about like Ethan Hawke, and what about him? Are you a big fan of his by any means?
He is one of those actors that I don't really have too strong of an opinion about him one way or another. I haven't seen him in too many films. I think he plays the sort of goofball doofus pretty well in this movie. He just makes one asinine mistake after another, and if you just you keep watching him just make these foolhardy decisions, because he's basically a great big wimp, but better hearted, I believe, compared to Andy, his brother, who masterminded the whole jewelry store robbery. So I thought he played the part well. He's attractive for the role of the cute younger brother, and I think he means well, but he just didn't have the wherewithal to not dig himself in so deep, and in so doing dig everybody else in deep too. So it's too bad.
Yeah, it is really one of those movies, and you described it perfectly when you suggested that we watch it. It's like this catastrophic list of things that just keep going wrong. It's one of those movies that just digs itself deeper and deeper and deeper in, and the characters dig themselves deeper and deeper and deeper in, and there's this kind of desperation to everyone in this movie. There's this need of the the escape route that they envisioned for themselves, which in this movie's case is money, and then as they get further and further away from that and more enmeshed in this crime that they all commit, then it's just this like unraveling, which I think is really cool. What is it about that type of movie that you find appealing?
Relatability.
Yeah.
It's a very human experience. Things don't happen in perfect chronology. There are instances which can irreparably change the trajectory and course of one's life. And it's not a perfect succession of problem A, problem B, and it gets absolved by option C. It leads to bigger, more catastrophic domino effect, chain reaction type of situations because we're human and we don't always know the correct equation to make things fall into place, or we're so traumatized by one decision or one circumstance which then spirals in part if not mostly because of our own emotional reaction to something so devastating happening. So there might be a more plausible way of amending it, but due to trauma, due to being just the very human reaction of being paralyzed emotionally, cognitively, oftentimes there's this kind of self-destruct mode that human beings somehow instinctually instigate. And that's just fascinating to me. It's a death instinct, which some people have more innately and more stronger than other people. And the devastation, the downward spiral of all of these characters, it wasn't just Andy and his younger brother, but it was everybody. It was the wife, it was the colleagues. Of course, the mother dies because of her son's, both of her sons' decisions to execute this horrific act. Basically, the father, of course, who ultimately gets revenge on his own son. It's everybody in the film, and which one do you focus on? Because it's all this plethora of just human destruction.
It's really a grim viewpoint of like humanity, because yeah, everyone in this movie, I think like just about everyone is a bad person, if you want to use those terms or whatever. Like they commit some sort of terrible sin, whether it's literally murder or being just like so destructive in their ways, or being cheating and lying and doing drugs. It's just kind of this absolutely bleak look at humanity. And like, if you have these characters who are at the points where they're ready to do all this, then what is a day in their life, or what is like the point that brought them down? Because yeah, just to go into the plot, it's about a pair of brothers, Phillip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke. Phillip Seymour Hoffman plans a heist of their mother's jewelry store and gets Ethan Hawke to do it. And Ethan Hawke, I don't remember character names, by the way, but like Ethan Hawke enlists his friend who pulls a gun, shoots both of their mother, and then that starts this slow destruction of all the characters around them as they spiral, trying to think about how to handle it, what they're going to do now. And the fact that also another great actor, Michael Shannon, is now pursuing Ethan Hawke because of the death of his sister's husband. And I wanted to ask you, you said this is where you found Phillip Seymour Hoffman as an actor. Is this also where you found Michael Shannon?
He is the one that plays the really sort of softly vicious
Mm-hmm.
the brother of the wife of the robber who accompanied Hank to the jewelry store.
Right. So complicated. Yeah.
No, I think he's in 8 Mile, maybe not, but
Oh.
I think about the past couple of days with Eminem. He is in Revolutionary Road, which is one of my favorite movies. Hopefully, we can discuss that movie one day. It's a drama, but he is very good at playing dark, devious characters without it being super animated, darkly, softly sadistic. What was the question? Is this where I discovered him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I get, well, no, because I had seen 8 Mile in the early 2000s. I hope he's in that. If that's not him, it'd be really embarrassing. But Revolution,
I'll do a
that
quick Google to find out.
was,
I never saw 8 Mile. Is it good? Should I watch it?
I think it is, and I'm really proud of Eminem for not pursuing some, alternative career as an actor. It was autobiographical. He did a good job, and then he was done. I respect that fully.
And yes, Michael Shannon was in 8 Mile, so you're right. Okay.
Stand vindicated. I'm good at that, remembering, faces. Obviously, he made enough of an impression on me even back then because that movie came out in 2002, long time ago. I was 16.
Wow.
For the
Yeah.
record.
Oh, right. I mean, 8 Mile. I remember that coming out. I first saw and noticed Michael Shannon in the film Take Shelter, which eventually we'll do on this show. And he's, like you say, I mean, he's extremely good at playing these dark, bizarre, sort of psychologically bizarre characters, probably deeply paranoid, schizophrenic, whatever you want to call it. He's just kind of really good at that. That's like his expertise. And I'm trying to think, realistically speaking, I think I first saw Phillip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3, most likely.
Yeah, I've heard that he has mentioned that. Actually, I take my original statement back too. I originally saw him in The Talented Mr. Ripley. Great job. He's a supporting character in that movie, one of my favorite movies again. But he's one of those people who can kind of slink into a movie, and regardless of the weight and the actual screen time he has, he just makes an indelible impression. In many different ways. He's good at playing troubled, vulnerable, sadistic. He can do many things. He's a bird of many feathers, but The Talented Mr. Ripley would have been years prior. I believe that was 1998. So
yeah, we should talk about that movie one day because that's a good weird one.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just started to read the book, but anyways, yeah. So then, speaking of Philip Seymour Hoffman, I wanted to shout out. He has some really amazing moments in this movie. If anyone's gonna watch it, and if they're a fan of his, and just watch out for. There's this scene where he learns that his wife has been cheating on him, and he confronts her about it, and then afterwards he goes into the bedroom and there's just this slow destruction of the bedroom scene where instead of flipping things over and creating a big angry lash out, he just slowly pushes things over and breaks things and pours out all the marbles out of this cup. And it's impossible to describe. It sounds stupid when I'm describing it, but it's this really powerful scene that he acts extraordinarily well. And yeah, him. I mean, he was a great actor. He's certainly one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, that scene, when I describe my favorite movies as being the downward spiral of the character, I always flash to that scene too, because he is at a point where, and many people can relate to this, to where it doesn't have to be some animated, huge climactical demonstration of devastation. When somebody is just done, when they're at their wits' end, it can come quietly. And it's this acceptance. It's many, many things, that scene, but it's this acknowledgement and acceptance that he's just at his wits' end and things are irreparable. And marbles and plant pots and the linens on the bed just don't matter anymore. So it's this twisting of the knife and this simultaneous acknowledgement that he's over. The life as he knew it is over.
Right.
And it's a very powerful scene, really.
And I think it's also him acknowledging that what he has to do next, which, like, several scenes from then is when he first, we assume first kills somebody. He starts, like, he goes on a little murder spree in this film, and he kills his drug dealer, and he kills Michael Shannon's partner, and I think he might kill one other person. I don't remember. Well, I guess he kills Michael Shannon, and I think that that's this place of him getting kind of like a brief glimpse into the future of, like, this is gonna go really, really bad, and also probably not witnessing, but foreseeing that he probably is not going to survive, because if he's gonna confront these people in a mortal, a fight for mortality, then there's a good chance that they will win and that he will die. And ultimately he does die, although it is not at their hands.
Yeah, I don't know when exactly he loses his mind in this movie, but the scene that we were just talking about, watching somebody lose it, it doesn't always have to be loud and theatrical and bigger than life and in technicolor. It can be, but sometimes it's a very soft, kind of deathly, just embracing of what's to come, which can be even more ominous. And then as the movie progresses, as it gets into its last leg, right, he kills the drug dealer, he kills, what's that actor's name again?
Michael Shannon.
And he wants to kill his brother, and he's about to, but the wife or the sister of Michael Shannon, the woman who plays his sister in the movie, intervenes, and Hank is able to run away like a little bitch and presumably gets away with it.
Yeah, we talked about the end last time. How do you interpret the end? Like, do you think Ethan Hawke gets away at the end? Because the movie ends where we haven't really talked about it, but their father, played by Albert Finney, goes to the hospital and smothers Phillip Seymour Hoffman in the hospital. And the last that we see of Ethan Hawke is in the room where Phillip Seymour Hoffman first shoots Michael Shannon, and then Michael Shannon's sister shoots Phillip Seymour Hoffman. Ethan Hawke takes off. And yeah, like, how do you see that character? Where do you think he goes from here?
I mean, I didn't really spend a lot of, like I said before, a lot of time thinking about who gets away with what in the movie. I know that for example, the father kills his own son. He kills Andy, and does he get away with it or get arrested and,
Mm-hmm.
have to pay his due process for what he did? I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about what ultimately might have happened. What did you think about the ending in terms of what people got, if people got what they deserved, what was to become of the various characters who did survive, such as Marissa Tomei's character, such as Hank, such as sister, who now has Sans a brother and Sans a husband and a child to raise. I mean, if anybody is a true victim in the movie, it's her. what did you think about the ending for all involved?
Yeah, well, I think after our last recording, I did have more thoughts on it because initially I viewed it as this is like a really interesting. First of all, I love the ending, let me just say, but this is like a really interesting place where it leaves us with so many questions. But the more I thought about it, the more I think everyone in this film is just doomed. This is not a movie about anything good happening. It's like, I think not, and it doesn't matter, obviously, but I think like Ethan Hawke ends up going to jail. I think the woman who shot Phillip Seymour Hoffman ends up in jail. I think Albert Finney ends up in jail. I think he probably gets, a somewhat lenient sentence. But yeah, I mean, because again, this is a movie about the dark characters and the lives that they live. And even though it's kind of centered around white collar crime, it's very much about how we as human beings will get into these situations where we are so desperate that we will do anything. And that type of desperation, I think, is being shown as leading to negativity. Like, if you are this desperate, then only bad will come from it. Or if you lean into that desperation, then only bad will come with it. And I think that in its own way, it's not doing that judgmentally, which I think is a really strong position to take because there's a lot of people and there's a lot of films that could look at that and could paint its characters as more, quote unquote, bad people or as more hedonistic or whatever, however they want to be portrayed. And I really like how humane these characters are.
Yeah, the desperation part is what resonated with me as well, because I know that being in that state, especially for a prolonged period, and granted, these characters weren't the whole incident which set off the chain of events, that element didn't last all that long. I think it was over the course of how many days or weeks, I'm not sure. But to get to that place where you're so desperate to change your financial or professional and or relationship status with your child or with your wife, um, it really can make people act in a way that's, I don't want to say unhuman because it's a very human experience to be acting purely on instinct, and purely from a primal need to survive. But it's very irregular. It's irregular to live that way because we as a advanced, sophisticated society, we like to think we're beyond that. But at the end of the day, if your needs go unmet on whatever level, or especially a combination of levels, you'll begin to behave illogically, which can then further substantiate so-called illogical um, behaviors that somebody wouldn't normally do if he or she were in his or her right mind. So it was very relatable. Um, some people can maybe relate to that state more so than others, but that operating on instinct and in so doing, just things getting progressively worse. It's tragic. The whole movie is just one big tragedy for everybody involved.
Definitely. Yeah. Um, there's a idea that I didn't mention last time, but it's this notion of like a director's final film. And this is the final film of director Sidney Lumet, who was a big 70s director with Dog Day Afternoon and Serpico and a bunch of other stuff. And I always like to think of their final stuff because it's very much different from the era in which they were beginning, obviously, but even different from the beginning in which they, or I mean, the era in which they were the most popular. So I don't think that this is intentionally his last movie. I don't know if he knew he was going to die or not, but anyways, I have no point. I'm just saying, like, I like to think of directors' final movies.
Yeah, I'm not a huge director hound. I appreciate Sam Mendes, Darren Aronofsky, um, obviously those gangster films, which I'm so fond of, Casino, Scarface, that whole genre. Um, so who was the director behind? I know Scarface was somebody different, but Casino, Goodfellas, who was that director?
Scorsese.
Of course. How could
Yeah.
I forget? I'm not a huge director hound, but I do think it is interesting just watching the progression and evolution of somebody's work. And if I were more invested in that angle of it, I might have more to contribute about that. I'm more so observant when it comes to actors and where he started out or she started out, especially if excuse me, the person was a child actor and watching their evolution literally on screen. Wow. Oh my goodness, what a lifetime. So I become more invested in the evolution of, especially, of course, my favorite actors and actresses, and especially if the person started out very young. That's not applicable to anybody in this movie, but maybe in future movies it will be.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be interesting. We should watch a movie with like a former child actor or something. Because
Juliette Lewis would be a really good example. She was 15 in Cape Fear and did a phenomenal job. She's older than you and I, so she's probably approaching 50, I want to say.
yeah.
And what a life. She is incredible.
Yeah. I think we talked on one of these about we need to watch California and review that.
That movie is so hard to find. That movie and Airheads. I don't know what the flip is going on with those two, but they're two of my favorite movies, impossible to find. They don't stream, they're not on any services, they're not on YouTube. I don't know what the deal is. I think it's a big conspiracy to keep me from obsessively viewing them
It
over
must be. Right.
and over, which I would.
Hmm.
They're all in on it.
They looked at your list and they're like, just block all these ones, you know?
I swear to God, it's a thing.
Um, well, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like this is a little bit shorter than last time, but did we say everything? Was there anything else that you wanted to shout out about the movie or that you remembered from last time?
So one thing that was mentioned was the character, I'm sorry, the actor who played the father.
Hmm.
He's
Albert.
in what
His name is Albert Finney.
right. I wasn't sure. I remember last time if he was in Aaron Brockovich. So, like the studious little influencer that I am, I looked it up, and yes, he is in that movie, which that's one movie I decidedly do not like. Um, it has Julia Roberts, who I don't like her as an actress or as a human being from what I know of her, just the impression that I've gotten from interviews. And he's in that movie in a pretty prominent role. But you like him, yes?
Yeah, I do like him. He's in a movie called Under the Volcano that I really liked, and he's in No Time to Die, and he's in I mean, a lot of stuff. He's like an, an actor that's been around for a long time. So I mean, going back to like tracking actors' trajectory, he's definitely someone who had a storied history at the time he made this, and then continued to have a storied history for another 20 years. I believe he's still alive, but do you think, like, when he takes the life of Philip Seymour Hoffman, he understands that Philip Seymour Hoffman's character planned this murder, well, what ended up becoming a murder of his wife. Do you think that that's like a action that tracks for you? Do you think that that like works in the movie? Because it's a for me it's a little bit of a jump. It's a little bit of a jump. Like I think we need to extrapolate that maybe Philip Seymour Hoffman's character has been evil for a long time, and the father has had many confrontations for him. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I do think there is something to be said about. I do think that it was revenge. He was clearly very in love with his wife still. They were a cute older couple, and everything was just peachy until it wasn't. And I do think that it's reflective that he took that measure. Would he have killed Hank in cold blood? I don't know about that. So I think it is reflective of the previous existing father-son dynamic, which is made very apparent by Andy's meltdown in the car following when he had confronted his father about always having felt like the black sheep and an outcast, and he always had to work harder to gain respect, and being the eldest child of that family, and not being as cute as Hank was. There was tension already, and I think it is indicative that he was never his father's favorite. They probably always had a fairly contemptuous relationship that facilitated the action that his father took in the end. Because would he have done that to Hank? I I can't say, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's worth considering.
Yeah, I don't think he would have at all. And I also think that there's like an amount of and we talked about this last time too, like the the justice that everyone gets and does it fit their crime, and who really is the who's the not necessarily like the mastermind, but who is to be held responsible for this crime, because you have a mastermind who influences essentially a peon in Ethan Hawke, and then Ethan Hawke hires a hitman, and each level has its own culpability to the end result of the crime, and which one do you really punish? And in this movie, they punish the mastermind, really.
Right. Yeah, because Hank, his biggest flaw was stupidity. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
he was the one hired that who hired that uh, fellow robber to do his dirty work, and that's basically where things begin to go horrifically wrong. But he wasn't the mastermind. He wasn't the one who had the inception of this really demonic idea. I mean, who does that?
Right.
Organizing a heist to rob their own family's jewelry store. You might have animosity against your parents and you might be desperate, but that's pretty extreme. So if Hank hadn't been such an impressionable moron, I wonder if the inevitable result could have been avoided. I wonder if Andy would have maybe found somebody else. I guess we'll never know. Andy won't be around to tell us, that's for sure.
No, really. Nope. So, so yeah, final thoughts and your rating.
I'm going to give this movie an 8. It's one that I can absolutely see over and over and over again, but it is a heavy movie, so it's not one that I would probably see in close succession. Not that I have an issue with heavy movies per se, but this one is so, it leaves one with such a melancholic feeling that I usually let maybe a year go by. Well, 6 months to a year before I see it again. So I've seen it mathematically over the course of 2008 or 2009 when it came out many times. It's often available for free on Amazon and Hulu. So thankfully, this is one such movie where I've had the opportunity to view it numerous. But I'm going to give it a solid 8 rating.
And same with me. Yeah, I'm giving it an 8. I really like movies like this. I like small scale. There's probably only a handful of sets. It's like 2 homes, a drug den, a car, a store. It's very, very small. It's very low budget, and it's just in the writing and it's in the performances. It's like that's what you have. No special effects, nothing like that. And I love movies like that. If you can master work like just character interaction as like your film, then I'm all for it. And like gritty crime dramas, this is probably really high on the list for me. So I'm also giving it an 8. And then our next film, I chose the 2011 Lars von Trier independent drama disaster film, Melancholia. This is a movie I've seen a couple of times. It's something that I really, I don't know. It's definitely a strange movie. It's kind of long. It's kind of slow, but I really like it, and that's what we're gonna do next.
Right, having or containing Kirsten Dunst in it. She's not one of my favorite actresses, but I've known of her and kind of been privy to her work for a long time. She's one of those actresses that can do kind of lighthearted, fluffy movies like Bring It On and Jumanji well, while also doing heavier, more serious roles such as, what's an example? She was in Virgin Suicides. She was in Crazy Beautiful, a very good movie where, well, I wouldn't say very good movie, but where she definitely demonstrates a range and is more grunty and just rough around the edges in that movie. So she's more dynamic than some people might give her credit for. And I have no idea what she's up to now, but I do remember liking her a lot.
Yeah, and also it came up organically, and neither of us even noticed it. But she's a child actor. She was in, you just named Jumanji, and she was also in Interview with the Vampire.
I was going to say she was young in that movie. She was 11, I believe, and had a very adult energy for a more adult, well, not adult in that way, but just a more mature audience type of film. So that's one such example of a lifetime in film. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that'll be next week, and that was Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. So that's it for us.
Don't be a hipster, but do hang out.
out.